Welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm your host, Corey. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Podserve, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first. Author Jenisen Brushwood's new book, The Keeper of the Key of Death, follows a young woman's journey to bring back magic and a lost civilization to her world. And Jenisen is here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Jenisen, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Jenisen, can you tell me all about The Keeper of the Key?
Basically, it's the first book of a series I'm working on, and it got a lot of questions. So when you read it, you'll be asking a lot of questions, and those will be answered in future books. But this one just focuses on Violet and her journey, but doesn't exactly go into detail as to where she's from and things like that. It's pretty much just a messed up world that she ended up in.
What kinds of readers do you have in mind for this?
People who enjoy fantasy or, the odd.
So where was that inspiration? What gave you that idea for it?
I have actually had this in my head since I was 12, and my husband is the one that encouraged me to just go ahead and go for it.
What does your writing background look like? Do you have experience in this kind of thing?
I don't have experience in writing books per se, but I have written a lot of poetry, and I did get a piece published when I was young. I don't remember when or even what book it was in. It was such a long time ago.
So once you got started on this, was this a long process for you overall, the writing, publishing, and everything?
It was. It was a little nerve-wracking, and a lot of the holdup was just me questioning myself.
So you had your manuscript ready, you started working with your publisher, Newman Springs. What would you say was the most challenging part about that publishing process for you?
The unknowing was definitely it. I didn't know if it would be, liked or accepted or, if it was just me that liked this sort of thing or, it was all the different unknowns going on in that.
And then I can only imagine what you were thinking whenever it was finally a real thing and you're holding the Keeper of the Key in your hands for the first time, Jenisen. What was that moment like for you?
Oh, I cried. I couldn't believe I actually did it. I was in shock and awe, and I felt like I was in a bit of a dream.
Jenisen, what would you say was the most rewarding aspect of this all for you?
Being able to actually share my creativity and my visions. I know it sounds cliche, but actually having other people read and enjoy what I write, that is honestly one of the best feelings.
So we have a lot of authors listening to us right now. They're just starting out in all of this as well. Jenisen, do you have maybe some advice that you could throw out there for them?
Yeah, I say if it's something you've always wanted to do, whether you're confident in it or not, just go for it. The only people that's going to judge you are the people that are too weak to do it themselves.
I've talked with so many authors here over the years, and I've noticed how many of them also love to read. Jenisen, would you call yourself an avid reader?
Oh, yes. I am actually working on having, I don't know how many books it takes to make a library, but I am about 500 books, and I've read every single one of them in my home.
Do you find yourself reading the kinds of things like The Keeper of the Key, or do you explore other kind of genres?
I do both. I like horror, thriller, true crime, fantasy, sci-fi, pretty much anything that isn't based on reality I like.
So I'm looking at the book right now, and the cover looks great. Was that a tricky process for you to figure out what you wanted that to look like?
No, I knew what I wanted the cover to look like since I had this in my head when I was 12. That was one of the easy parts for me.
Jenisen, who or what would you say inspires you the most, especially when it comes to things like this?
I would have to say my husband and my daughter. They're the ones that support me through everything.
So when you're writing, do you find yourself having sort of a routine to it, like maybe you write first thing in the morning, or maybe you're a late night writer? Or do you find yourself just sort of writing whenever you feel that inspiration coming on?
Typically, I write whenever I have the inspiration coming on, but that requires very warm weather and some beautiful flowers blooming somewhere.
Well, it sounds like readers are going to love this book and this series. Again, it's titled The Keeper of the Key of Death. It's written by Jenisen Brushwood and published by Newman Springs Publishing. Pick it up at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Jenisen, it's been really great to talk with you tonight. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Well, thanks for having me. It was great speaking to you as well.
Author E.S. Hayes III has written a stunning account of the author's journey from working in law enforcement to questioning his career and field. The book is titled Flaw Enforcement. E.S. is here with me now. We're going to talk all about it. E.S., welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. It's great to have you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the time.
Can you tell me what you've written about in Flaw Enforcement?
Well, it started out as a journaling exercise that was tasked to me by my therapist to deal with PTSD. And, cops, 65% of their job is paperwork and police reports, and it becomes mundane and it becomes, arduous. And most cops hate writing reports. So at first I kind of pushed back and it's like, man, I really don't want to spend any more time behind a computer. But I started journaling little by little, paragraph by paragraph. And it turned into this living, breathing document, this examination of my thoughts and feelings, after a hard day or after a good day or after something that popped up with the family or something that popped up with work. And eventually it just became this thing. I was talking with a doctor. I was out on medical leave after traumatic brain injury. And I was kind of telling him the story of, my career and what had happened. And he said, wow, you really should write a book. And I said, well, funny you say that. I've actually got, 35,000 words already. And then that kind of switched my perspective from, maybe while this has been therapeutic for me, while it's been cathartic, maybe it can help, somebody else. And maybe it can give others an inside view of what first responders go through every day and the hardships. So that's what I wrote about.
What kinds of readers did you have in mind for this?
I really didn't have an audience in mind when I wrote it, but after reading it back and sharing it with friends and family, obviously the people who are in my life who experienced a lot of the traumas and a lot of the things that I experienced with me, they know firsthand the struggles that I dealt with and the problems that I experienced and the aftermath of such. But others were shocked to kind of read and hear my inner thoughts about my feelings and my struggles with society and withdrawal and alcoholism and becoming, just judgmental and difficult, So I don't think I had an audience in mind. I don't think there's any specific audience that I could say, yes, this is definitely for this person. I think it can help anyone and everyone to help people understand that there are individuals who do tough jobs every single day, day in and day out. Cops, doctors, firefighters, nurses, paramedics. The people who are really on the front lines and dealing with this stuff every single day, and their families and their friends and their neighbors and their, statesmen and countrymen can benefit from this type of thing.
So once you sat down and decided, hey, this is going to be a book, clear up through the publishing process, was this a long process overall for you?
I never even thought about publishing anything. So I had queried a few literary agents, some of which showed some interest, but showed very little follow through. And, just through some basic internet research, found a publisher in Newman Springs. And from the very first contact that I had with Newman Springs, they were incredible. Through the pre-publishing process, I sent them my manuscript. They assigned me a dedicated person who helped me through the entire process, step by step by step. And ultimately, I decided to go with them because, their customer service and their willingness to help was second to none.
What are the chances, would you say, that you'll be writing another, do you think?
Well, one thing that writing that book taught me is that writing is very cathartic for me. And since then, I write every single day. Some of it's journaling, some of it's thoughts, some of it's feelings, some of it's observations. It's actually helped me kind of foray into the world of stand-up comedy and writing jokes and writing bits and writing scenes and writing manuscripts and writing scripts. So it's great. I love it. I used to hate it, and now I love it. And I do it every single day, whether I write 2 sentences or I write 34 pages. I'm writing every single day now.
Well, this sounds like a wonderful book. I think readers are really going to be into it. Again, this is titled Flaw Enforcement, written by E.S. Hayes III and published by Newman Springs Publishing. Pick it up at places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and right down the street at your local bookshop. E.S., thank you again for coming on the show. It's been really great to talk with you tonight.
No, thank you for the time. I appreciate it, and best luck, best wishes.
Andrew Jaworski's new book, titled Living with a Desmoid Tumor, chronicles his late wife's medical journey with a rare and aggressive condition. Andrew is sitting right here with me now at the show, and we're going to talk all about it. Andrew, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for the invite.
Andrew, can you tell me all about what you've written in Living with a Desmoid Tumor?
Well, bottom line, my wife had started this book out as a way of helping her get through the problems that she was experiencing. It came early to us in our years of marriage that we were told by a psychologist that she will travel this road alone, and there's nothing I can do as her husband, her friend, or anything to make it any better or any easier other than being there for support. So she took it upon herself to write all of her experiences throughout the years. In the beginning, the doctors gave her 3 years to live, and she proved them wrong. She lived an additional 30 years, made it to 70 and a half years old. And to my surprise, she had developed her skills in writing this therapy session that started out being to the point that it became an educational book for other people that will be experiencing things in their lifetime that they cannot share or expect relief from anybody else. So when she passed away, I had ran across her book in her computer as I was cleaning things up and looking for paperwork and filing and all that. And to my surprise, she had this book. And at that point, it was upon me to get it published for her to be out there for the world. Her main goal, she was a very soft-hearted and loving person, beautiful soul, but struggling with the pain over the years plagued most of her life. Every time she went in for surgery, it was a different level of quality of life. And from her book, as everybody will read and find, there was a lot of mistakes that we made in the beginning years by trusting doctors, nurses, the hospitalization. We came to the conclusion that when the doctors tell you that this is their practice, they really do mean it. It is a practice. They're practicing on you because every day they may not know exactly what they need to do to treat your ailments. Each person's individual, and as this book will explain it to you, hopefully it'll help give you some ideas and questions that you can ask to complete the knowledge that you need to have in order to make the right decisions for yourself. Because along the way, there will be some suggestions of what you should do and how you should handle it. But those are usually made in a general sense of an answer for everybody, because it seems like they haven't gotten to the point of treating each individual unique with their problems, their medical conditions. So the answers are kind of generalized. Out of 25 doctors, Bev had 3 that understood what she was really going through. And that was toward the latter part of her years. And the first one was in her major surgery when she was in her late 20s. And after that time, it was more of all these individual doctors were just trying to learn from her practice so that they could be better at their skills. So my main goal was to complete her book writing, her therapy of the sessions that she wrote about, and turn it into a book that other people could learn from and use during their time. Because every surgery that we go through, every medical condition, it changes our quality of life. It doesn't get us back to where we used to be, but it gets you to the point where you can move on.
So when it comes to the whole writing and publishing thing, are you experienced in this, or was this kind of a new thing for you?
Oh, it was definitely a new thing for me. My corner of the world is finance. I retired from being a finance director for a major airport. In the beginning years when Bev put this together, like I mentioned, it was more of therapy for her. It was something that she was writing down to understand why she was going through this. Because we always have that question, why me? Why am I experiencing this and no one else? And those are answers that you'll never find here in this world. But after you pass, hopefully you will get the answers that you're looking for.
What a wonderful book. Again, it's titled Living with a Desmoid Tumor. It's written by Andrew Jaworski and published by Newman Springs Publishing. So it's available basically everywhere, like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and right down the street at your local bookshop. Andrew, thank you again for coming on the show. It's been really great to talk with you.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Author Jimmy Graham has written a heartwarming children's book that teaches timeless character lessons through simple, relatable stories. It's titled, How Do You Love a Fish? Jimmy is here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, and we get to talk all about the book. Jimmy, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Honored. Thank you for having me.
Jimmy, can you tell me all about what you've written and how do you love a fish?
It's a simple story that started with a conversation with my daughter. We were at a daddy-daughter camp out, and I was just laying there, woke up a little bit earlier than her, and God put it on my heart to write a book with 11 principles that I believe young people should know, and some stories, shared some family stories that have been successful for us. And she asked me, what are you doing? I said, I'm talking to God. I think he wants me to write a book. She said, what is it called? And I said, How Do You Love a Fish? And now the rest, I'm holding it in my hand right now. It's pretty awesome.
Jimmy, what kinds of readers would this connect with the most?
I would like to say, when I'm thinking about that, I'd like to say 5 to 10-year-olds, but then I think also their parents. So a lot of this stuff is I work a lot with, men in what I do. A lot of people, they're written for children. I think there's a lot of men that I meet that didn't know these things. They didn't know about, they didn't realize that maybe they weren't saying please and thank you, sir and ma'am. Maybe they weren't shaking hands. Maybe they weren't looking people in the eye. And now, I really enjoy helping people so they can help their kids. I'm not trying to be the hero to anybody else's kids. I don't just love my kids. I love all kids. But I'd love to, come alongside these parents and help them teach their kids that something maybe they didn't even know.
So what was that spark that made you say, hey, I got to sit down and get started on this thing?
I've often wondered, what's going on with this nation that I love. I'm a veteran. I'm a veteran U.S. Navy SEAL. And I spend a lot of time thinking about what's going on. I love this nation, and I don't appreciate what's going on. Anytime I look on the news, it's just disheartening. I spoke this morning on the news about some current tragedies, and then that conversation with my daughter. I was like, well, and I say in the book, how are kids going to know these things if we don't teach them? And more importantly, if we don't show them. We should teach them these things, and we should show them in our daily lives. And, you start using that word accountability too much, it comes back around on you. And I get, okay, I tell men all the time, if you can't find a leader, then it's you. So you go from, I've got an idea about a book, and then you can't imagine not writing the book. So, and then you end up holding the book.
What does your writing background look like, Jimmy? Are you experienced in this kind of thing?
It's funny that I had told somebody about writing a book. Let's see, this one came out in 25. So in 24, I self-published a book called The Return of Man. America's Only Hope is in Our Original Hope. That was quite an adventure. So I did just recently publish something, and he says, you kind of written your whole life. And I'd shared some things through college and then through some other times when I'd written maybe a song here or a poem here. And he said, writing has changed your life. And it didn't really dawn on me until he said that sometimes things are put on your heart and you just have to get them out of you. So yeah, just, published the Return of Man in 04, and then How Do You Love a Fish in 05. That's my experience.
So when you think about the writing of How Do You Love a Fish and the publishing process and everything, was this a long journey overall for you?
Oh, yeah. The first book is more of kind of, stories in my life that I wanted to tell people of what I believe a man is, not at 25 or 35 in the SEAL teams on the other side of the world, but at 52, raising a family. That definition changed quite a bit. So I wanted to put that into a book. So yeah, it's pretty cool to be holding, something in your hands that started off as just a notion, and then you spend some time thinking about it, and then it's something that could, potentially be around long after you.
And something that's really important in a book like this is the illustrations. Was that a smooth process for you?
It's all of the stuff. It was a new experience when I went with Christian Faith Publishing as who published it. It's very, very time consuming on that end. You make a correction and then you wait. I tell people it's like steering a ship, like a big ship. You put in a correction and you wait, and then you wait and you wait, and it comes back and another correction, and they see the finished project. All you see is you want your book done, but there's such a process to it. And man, it was rewarding both times. And again, this book will be around on bookshelves, long after I'm gone.
Well, this sounds like a great book for children and families. Again, it's titled How Do You Love a Fish? It's written by Jimmy Graham, published by Christian Faith Publishing, and available basically everywhere, like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and right down the street at your local bookshop. Jimmy, thank you again for being on the show. It's been great to talk with you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Book 1 of the Andrew Owens series is out right now. It's written by Allie Elizabeth, and it's titled Andrew Owens and the Power Amulet. Allie is sitting right here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. That's what we're going to talk about. Allie, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Allie, can you tell me all about Andrew Owens and the Power Amulet?
Of course. So Andrew Owens is a book about a young boy. He's 10 years old. On his 10th birthday, he discovers that he is a fire elemental. He is then taken to the elemental realm, known as the Everglades, where he then learns about the other 4 types of elementals, which consist of fire, ice, water, and earth. Together with his new friends, Chris and Emma, he goes to school where he learns about the creatures of the realm, relics of the realm, and how to use his elemental abilities. However, as his school year progresses, someone within the Everglades has summoned a minotaur to hunt down a dangerous relic, and now Andrew and his friends need to basically figure out who summoned the minotaur and what they're after.
I love it, Allie. What sorts of readers did you have in mind for this?
The book is for people who love fantasy and adventure stories with a hint of mystery in there. It's also for those who are interested in a new fantasy series where the story is created over multiple books.
How were you inspired to get started on this?
I was working at my job and I was very bored, so I came up with this kind of story in my head. And then one day I just decided to write it all down, and it just ended up becoming a book series.
Wow, so have you ever done anything like this before, or is this kind of a new thing for you?
No, I've never done anything like this before. This is definitely a new thing. But once I started it, I kind of started running with it, and I've already got the whole series planned out, so I'm really looking forward to it.
How long of a series do you anticipate this being?
10-book series.
So once you sat down, started writing this, clear up through the publishing process and everything, was this a long journey overall for you?
Yeah, it was. I basically came up with a couple ideas. I spent some time really figuring out what I wanted to happen in this series, and I storyboarded all 10 books, made sure that I completely planned it out before starting to write it because I didn't want to have to go in and change things. But once I figured out what I wanted to touch on in each book, I did a bit of a summary for each chapter just to make sure that I get all the details involved, and then I just started writing.
So you had your manuscript already. You started working with your publisher, Newman Springs. Allie, what would you say was the most challenging part about that publishing end of things?
I think the second guessing, I always second guess whether or not I made all the right changes, whether all the grammar was good. I think that the second guessing was definitely the most difficult part, but I'm really happy with the way it turned out.
Yeah, there's nothing like seeing that finished product, that thing that you worked so hard toward. So once you were holding this in your hands for the first time, Allie, what was that like for you?
It was very exciting. Once I held it, I was like, I need to make more. I need stacks of these on my shelf. So it was very exciting, and I'm excited to keep making more.
So you're officially a published author now. When you think about that, what's the most rewarding aspect of it all for you?
I think getting my story out there, I'm very excited to see how the world receives it. I'm excited to see how people enjoy it, what they like, their series or whatever. I'm very excited to see how people engage with it.
So was writer's block ever a thing you had to get over?
Oh, yes, definitely. As a new author especially, I was kind of learning how to do everything. So with learning what words to use, how to convey my thoughts and what I wanted the world to look like, how to convey that into words was very difficult at first. But once I got the hang of it, I just kind of kept going with it.
It sounds like you had a pretty good idea for where the story was going to go. So while you were writing this, did you ever find those times when maybe things were veering off that path that you had planned?
There were some times where I was writing and I was like questioning if I should change an aspect of it or if I should add something new. I think what I learned pretty quickly, though, once I got to a certain point and I had the storyline, I had to keep it as is. If I kept trying to change it, it was just going to be evident throughout the work that it was not completely processed before I was writing it. So I definitely, once I got it down, I had to kind of stick to it.
Well, it sounds like readers are going to love this book and this series. Again, this is book 1 of the Andrew Owens series, titled Andrew Owens and the Power Amulet. It's written by Allie Elizabeth and published by Newman Springs Publishing. Pick it up pretty much everywhere, places like Amazon or Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Allie, it's been really wonderful talking with you tonight and learning all about your work. Thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you so much.
I'm holding a book now that's a faith-based guide to spiritual growth through God's transforming work over time. It's the new book by Joseph O. Njoku-Obi, titled The God Process. Joseph is here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Joseph, welcome. Thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the time. Great to be talking to you.
Joseph, can you tell me all about the God process?
Well, the God process is something that really has been I've been kind of working through sort of the last few years of my Christian walk. And really what it is a harken back to a word that we don't normally use in circles, which is sanctification. In its basic form is being conformed to the image of Christ. And so what I felt with a lot of the years of work that I've been doing with mentoring and coaching and discipling men was this idea of us getting back to fundamentals and really understanding that sanctification is a process, and it's a process that we enter into with God's help over time. And so that's really what the book is about. And the acronym there in that process talks about the different stages or the different elements that are really included in the sanctification progress.
Joseph, what sorts of readers do you think this would connect with the best?
Well, I think this is for sort of the average Christian. And what I mean by that is, somebody who's not going to Bible seminary or, somebody who has faith in Christ and they're going to church and they're serving God and they love Jesus and they are doing all those things that as Christians God calls us to. This is really for the reader to really understand the depth of this process of being conformed to the image of Christ. And it's really found in studying Scripture and really looking through and finding out from God what it is He's really calling us to and how we should live our lives. So it's really for I would say, just the average Christ follower.
What was that inspiration? What gave you the idea that you need to write this book?
Well, again, having this situation where sitting down with a lot of men and mentoring and discipling, that what I really found was men were really good and Christians were really good at following the things that you would think Christians would do. So going to church, worshiping God, serving at church. But the thing that was missing was the actual pursuit of God in Scripture. And so we need to pursue God in Scripture because that's how we find out who God really is, His character and nature. And then we find out what this whole process is, how God wants us to live. How should we act? How should we think? What our worldview should be. And so over the years, finding this common denominator of Christians doing a lot of quote unquote Christian things, but not being grounded in the foundation of studying His word, studying Scripture to really find out how they should live their lives.
Once you sat down, got started on this, was this a long journey that you were on overall, Joseph, the writing and publishing and everything?
It actually was, and a big part of it was my own doing. When I started to get this concept, and I really felt like God was impressing on me to write this idea of process and how, God could have created everything instantly, but He did it in process. I sat down to start writing, and I'm a first-time writer, and so sitting down and writing was really a journey. And I got to probably about halfway through the book, and then I stopped for a while just because I really didn't feel like I had more inspiration and I didn't have direction. And I actually stopped for about a year and a half until God started pressing on me, hey, you started this book, you need to finish it. And I started getting more ideas. And I guess maybe I had a year and a half writer's block, but went ahead and finished writing it. And it was definitely a very interesting journey with editing and went through the editing process about 2 or 3 times and trying to find the right publisher and trying to find a publisher that sort of aligned with my values and what the book was about. So it was definitely a very interesting process and one that I learned a lot through the process.
This book is titled The God Process. It's written by Joseph O. Njoku-Obi and published by Christian Faith Publishing. Find it at places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Joseph, thank you again for coming on the show. It's been great to talk with you.
Thank you, and I sure appreciate it. So thanks again, and we'll just see where this goes. I'm excited.
Author Michael Jennings invites readers to embrace the practice of meditation in his new book, The Midnight Sky is Blue. Michael is sitting right here with me now at the show, and we're going to talk all about it. Michael, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Michael. I'm curious to learn all about The Midnight Sky is Blue. Can you tell me about what you've written here?
You know, the midnight sky is blue. However, if you look at it, you probably can't see it. So the book to me is based on living life through truth. And the midnight sky is blue, and that's the truth. Whether you see it as black or however you see it, it's still blue.
Michael, what sorts of readers do you think this would connect with the best?
People who are on a journey or a search for like the truth in life, or just interested in, meditation and, how it can lead you to a more truthful lifestyle as far as my experience is concerned.
I'm curious about the subtitle, To the Midnight is Blue. It's a spiritual journey to the now. Life is a meditation. Michael, can you tell me about this?
Whether you know it or not, you live life in a meditative state in a day-to-day basis. I think recognizing, how you're actually seeing your states of living through your mind will kind of like help you understand where you're at, especially like if you're like on a journey, like in meditation. Most people in meditation are, looking, for an internal side to themselves. And, because we live such an external, outward living life, and we tend to want to grow from the inside out. So those are the kind of people, who would probably gravitate towards this type of a reading.
What was that idea, that inspiration that made you say, hey, I got to write this book?
As you probably know, everybody has a story to tell. I started writing. I started another writing quite a while back, and I'm sitting there looking at it now, and I just never really completed it. And at a certain point, along the journey, I got to this mindset of we're all supposed to be able to create something and give back to life. In other words, create for each other and create value, some kind of way. So, you create from where you are in life. And my writing is basically created from, where I come from and, what I do and how I see life through my spectrum of meditation.
So is this your first published work then?
Yes.
Being your first published one, was this a long process overall for you, the writing and publishing and everything?
If you're writing about what you enjoy doing, it's not going to be any more than just a writing. The work comes in when you want to actually make it something, like when you contact the publisher and, they accept it and you start to look at your work and, you start to see how to be more creative and how to put something together. So that's pretty much the mindset or, how I saw that.
What would you say was the most challenging part about that publishing process for you?
Writing, whether it's based on fiction or whatever, the hardest part of putting out something, as far as I'm concerned, is, you allow, others to see what your mindset is. So, that's the hardest part is can you trust yourself with what you do? And pretty much, yeah, like that.
Looking ahead, do you see yourself writing and publishing more, do you think?
Yes.
Is there something you have in mind right now, or is this just kind of something you're rolling around in your head?
Well, I have something that I haven't really completed. Started probably about 25, probably at least 25 years ago. But I know it's got a lot of work. I did this one I started this one before I even thought about this one that I have out now. So, if I want to put the work and the time into going back and just seeing how to recreate that or move that forward, then we'll have to see how that unfolds as things move forward in life. I haven't jumped on it. Writing is something that once you start writing, I don't think you ever stop. It's just a matter of, when do you find a way to have something that you can put together and call it okay, this is something that I can create and move forward with.
Well, again, this book is titled The Midnight Sky is Blue. It's written by Michael Jennings and published by Newman Springs Publishing. Pick it up at places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Michael, it's been great to talk with you tonight. Thanks again for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate that. And you have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Sitting right here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable is author Ranell Bond. Ranell, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Ranell, you have a book out titled Unbreakable Bond, Our Greater Yes. Can you tell me about what you've written here?
Yeah, this book is a book about our adoption journey. And more than just our journey, it's a book on God's faithfulness and how He saw us through every step of the adoption process.
What kinds of readers do you think this would connect with the most?
Well, prayerfully, it's going to connect with those who are interested or feeling led to adopt, and for those who have a heart to advocate for adoption and maybe even just awareness, not necessarily even if they're not called to adopt, but that they would want to pick up this book to know more about how they can come along and support the orphan crisis.
So you had this wonderful story to tell. What inspired you to write it and publish it for the world?
Well, definitely what inspired me was our fourth child, Beckham. He is our Ethiopian blessing, and we adopted him 12 years ago. He is the reason why this book was written.
What does your writing background look like? Have you done this kind of thing before?
I have not. I have mostly done poetry and written different theatrical pieces. When we were starting the process to adopt our son, I started to blog everything. And as I blogged and shared with the social media world, many people were saying, you need to get this in a book form. I would read it, I would tell everybody about it, and it took 10 years to do that. So here it is.
So once you got started writing and clear up through the publishing process and everything, was this a long journey you were on overall?
You know, I did say from the blog, I had the first year of the adoption process for our son, in blog form. And when I went back, I used that pretty much as the foundation. And then from there, I would say it took me a good year to finish the book, as I had some revisions to it as well. And just being a busy mom, a pastor's wife, in the middle of life, it took me a little longer than what I would have hoped for.
You chose a great publisher, Covenant Books. What would you say was the most challenging part about that publishing process for you?
They were incredible. I did choose a really fantastic publishing company, and I'm so grateful for them and them staying on task with me, especially the editor. She would often send me just reminders and getting things in, but I would definitely say just to carve out that time. And so then I needed to really find that time to be disciplined in everyday living and when that would be. And so usually it was when the kiddos were off to school, but I would sit down for a few hours every day and make that my time to get the writing done.
There's nothing like seeing that finished product when it's finally a real thing. So once you were holding Unbreakable Bond in your hands for the first time, Ranell, what was that moment like for you?
It was pretty surreal. Holding it felt like I was holding a year's worth, 20 years worth of weight that we had called out and prayed out for, and it just felt like an answer in my hands, especially going through the story and the pages once it's in book format. It was just like, wow, this is really here.
We have a lot of people listening to us right now, and they're authors who are just starting out. Ranell, do you have maybe some advice that you could offer to them?
Oh boy, I would definitely say to research your publishing company. I know for me, a lot of people were asking if I was going to self-publish or go through a publishing company, and I'm grateful that I went through a publishing company, especially for the accountability piece, because there were some deadlines to this. And I think the advice I would give them is, again, that discipline of time. You have to make room for it. I am such an extrovert. I am a very social person, and so it felt a little lonely sometimes just setting that time aside to write, but knowing that you will get through that, but you have to have that discipline set into that daily.
Well, this sounds like a wonderful book. Again, it's titled Unbreakable Bond, Our Greater Yes. It's written by Ranell Bond and published by Covenant Books. Find it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Ranell, it's been wonderful talking with you tonight. Thank you so much again for coming on the show.
Thank you, Corey, for having me.
The audiobook edition of Dummala, the book written by Joyce Marie Taylor and Mike Mullis, is out now. Mike is sitting right here with me now at the show, and we get to talk all about it. Mike, welcome. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Hey, Corey, I am so thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm thrilled to have you, and I'm excited to learn about Dummala. Mike, can you tell me all about this?
Yes, well, Dummala is a sci-fi, Corey, and the great thing about writing sci-fi is you can basically let your mind just kind of run wild. The story about Dummala is basically a rogue hurricane becomes a living entity and challenges mankind to clean up planet Earth from the effects of worldwide pollution. And planet Earth is in turmoil due to, man's pollution of air, oceans, soil, atmosphere, fresh water, etc. And the hurricane is prepared to do battle with mankind to take back the Earth from its inhabitants. And this storm originates in a geographical location of the planet that has never spawned a hurricane, and it also evolves at a time of year not even close to hurricane season. So in the story, right off the bat, it really gets people's attention. The hurricane begins tracking towards the United States, and it seems to have three eyes instead of the typical one. And as the storm nears the U.S. coast, it begins making erratic movements in certain areas. And each time that it does this, Corey, these Spanish galleon ships that have been lost for hundreds of years begin surfacing to the top of the ocean. It's as if this storm knows exactly where the buried ships are precisely located. And this hurricane, Corey, it eventually begins communicating with man using an ancient form of Mayan language and dialect. And this massive storm states that it possesses the power to destroy or the power to heal. So when this monster storm transitions into a Category 7 hurricane, and then surrounds and miraculously heals a group of critically ill children using an ancient, powerful healing dust, the entire world is astonished at this miracle that was performed right before their eyes. And this ancient, powerful healing dust was deposited when an asteroid struck planet Earth over 65 million years ago, and it has been undetected and undiscovered until now. This Category 7 hurricane purposely and precisely drilled into the crust of the Earth and unearthed this precious buried cargo at the Chicxulub crater beneath the Yucatan Peninsula in order to demonstrate its knowledge and healing power. So as the hurricane surrounds the terminally ill children, they unknowingly are breathing in this miraculous healing dust from distant galaxies, and it immediately transforms their cancer-stricken bodies to 100% healing. Inside the eye of the storm, there is complete calm. The children are experiencing the most beautiful musical melodies of the heavens and earth, and the most beautiful aromas of all the flowers of the planet Earth all rolled into one. And the most vivid colors of the color spectrum are also noticeable. One child is up out of his wheelchair and walking for the very first time. Another child, after being bald for months due to chemo, is actually sprouting hair right before her friend's eyes. All nations of the planet Earth now are completely convinced that this massive Category 7 storm has the knowledge and capability of assisting mankind to heal, restore, and protect planet Earth for future generations to come. And Corey, there are other fun, exciting sub-stories within the Dummala audiobook, but this unique and creative section stands out to me the most. And I will be donating a portion of the audiobook sales to the Make-A-Wish Foundation to assist local children.
Wow, I love that, Mike. Would you say you're primarily going for sci-fi fans here?
Yeah, I think so, because it started off as a sci-fi, and there's a lot of truth and realistic stuff in the story, but a lot of sci-fi as well. And I never dreamed I would end up writing a sci-fi story, but that's what it's turned into.
This book is titled Dummala, It's written by Joyce Marie Taylor and Mike Mullis. It's published by the Audiobook Network. So you can pick it up pretty much everywhere that you normally go to get your audiobooks, like Audible, iTunes, and Amazon. Mike, it has been really great talking with you tonight. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Hey, Corey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate you guys doing an interview, and I had a blast.
I'm sitting down with author Brock Marion here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. We're talking all about his new book, Eggster Surprise. Brock, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here tonight.
Well, thanks for having me.
Brock, can you tell me all about what you've written in Eggster Surprise?
Okay. I started writing the stories from my past where I've always told children's stories to my children and to grandchildren and to different students. I've been a coach for many years, so I've always been a storyteller. And I've also been a youth director, and I wanted to go start a series of books called Surprise Stories with a moral character to them at the end that would bring a lesson and foundation to children. And Eggster Surprise is taking on the purpose of Easter, but throwing a little twist to it where they have to guess the surprise at the end, but still relating it to Easter.
So this is a children's book. Would you say this is best for younger children or a little older children?
For younger children. 5 to 9, I would think, would be the general area.
So what was that spark, that inspiration that made you say, hey, I want to sit down and write this thing?
Well, I love to write. I've got many books started and many books ready to try to publish, but I just wanted to finish something that could be left to my children, grandchildren, and to others, and hopefully make a difference in lives of people that might read it.
So is this your first published one then?
It is my first published. I do have some others ready to go. I will get those out. As I retired here, I'm planning on doing a lot more writing and just putting my stories to life.
So once you got started on Eggster Surprise, was this a long journey for you overall, the writing and publishing and all that?
The writing was not. The publishing took a little longer because you don't know where to go for sure to put the books out and to get them published. I know in college I took a course on writing, and some of my stories there, they said that I should get them published because they had a good insight to them. So the writing was not hard. The publishing journey was a little harder, just knowing where to go to and how to approach it.
And once you started working with your publisher, Christian Faith, Brock, what would you say was the most challenging part about that publishing process for you?
The waiting for the publishing to be done.
Mm-hmm.
They were very good with me on working with me. I wanted to go with a Christian organization that could see the inside of what my book was going to do and be.
I could only imagine what was going through your head when it was finally real, and you're holding your first copy in your hands, Brock. What was that like for you?
It was exciting, but I think as much excitement for me, it was seeing my family that read the book and was seeing it published and just expanding on it. I've been invited to a couple of my grandchildren's kindergarten class where I read the book to the class with my grandchildren, and it's just another exciting journey in my life. I've had a lot of exciting journeys, and this is just another one that just top of the hill moment.
We have a lot of people listening to us right now, and they're authors just starting out. Brock, do you have maybe some advice that you could offer to them?
Yeah, I would say believe in your dream, believe in your writing, and just what they used to say in the military, just go do it, because you know in your heart when you're a writer that you've got something to share and something to love with others, and that'll come out in your writing and it'll come out in your books. And it'll help increase your dream. Whether it's a financial bonus or whether it costs you money, you're still putting what you love to do important as the number one.
In a children's book like this, the illustrations are really important. Was that a smooth process for you?
It was. The writing was not a problem, and the illustrations was something that you don't know what they're going to be like or how to do them or what they're going to look like or whether it's going to fit your idea of the book. It really wasn't that hard. It came around pretty easy.
Well, this sounds like a wonderful book for children. Again, it's titled Eggster Surprise, written by Brock Marion and published by Christian Faith Publishing. So you can find it at places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, or right down the street at your local bookshop. Brock, thanks again for coming on the show. It's been really great to talk with you today.
Well, I've really enjoyed the talk, too. I thank you very much.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.